Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I noticed that I keep getting this question all the time. Everyone seems to be interested to know about how I came to embrace Islam. And to be quite honest, this is a question that I also ask other revert brothers and sisters as well. So it's just nice to know, the backgrounds that we all came from, and what was the deciding factor for us that brought us to Islam and this great deen. So my story, it's not that long to be honest, but hey, if you find it interesting, then you find it interesting. If not, then I'm sorry that I've bored you for 5 minutes. But basically it all started when I was about 16. Started college, and there was quite a few Muslims that were in my college course at that time. They weren't practicing Muslims as such. They did talk generally here and there about Islam, or the odd one or two of them would nip off to the mosque every now and again, but that was about it really. There wasn't any sisters that were actually in my group that wore hijab or were practicing properly. So it wasn't like Islam stuck out like a sore thumb, and it was something that I had to inquire about. So yeah, I started college, obviously became friends with these particular girls in the group. I was aware that they were Muslims. I didn't really know anything about Islam or what Muslims did. We did talk a little bit at school about Muslims pray at a mosque, or they have to pray 5 times a day. They pray on a prayer mat, and that was about it really, to be honest. It wasn't going into great detail. So anyway, this one particular day, for whatever reason, we were sat in the canteen, and the 2 girls were talking about jinn, which I found extremely intriguing. I just sat there and I was just listening to the stories that they were telling about jinns in Pakistan, and I just couldn't believe it. And I'd always been intrigued about the hereafter anyway, and ghosts, and I'd always believed in that sort of a thing, and believed that ghosts existed. So I really did find it quite interesting, and I'd sat there and I listened to it, and I'd asked them a few questions about jinns and what they look like, and they told me that they could change form. They could also actually change into a particular person as well. So a jinn could take the form of your mother, for example, or your sister or whatever, and it just amazed me. From that, it then sort of went on to asking little bits and bobs about the religion, what they believed in. Did they believe in a God? Did they believe in Jesus? Did they believe that Jesus died on the cross? And they did answer the questions to the best of their ability, but sometimes, in all fairness, they were pretty straightforward, and basically just told me that they didn't know the answer, and they referred me to other people that could help, which was good. So alongside speaking to those girls, I also found that I started to pick up books from the library about Islam, only very basic, talking about the 5 pillars, and I would sit and I would read the books about covering, which was quite a big aspect that I looked into. Why a woman has to cover, why some choose to cover their faces and some don't. And again, that was something else that I found quite interesting. But at that time, I can always remember thinking I could never dress like that, or it would be really difficult to dress that way. They must be really hot in the summertime, and the usual things that you would think. So this sort of transition from nothing really. I came from a background of no religion, didn't go to church. I perhaps believed that there was a God, although I never prayed in any form. Like like I say, my mum was the same, never really went to church. The only person that did was probably my nan, my mum's mum. She used to go to church, but then again, that wasn't a case of she went to church every Sunday. So you could say that I came from a background that was pretty non-religious. So from the transition of going from nothing to coming across these girls at college and finding out about Islam, the whole thing in total probably took about seven or 8 years that I actually looked into Islam. And it went from obviously speaking about jinns to talking about the language, Arabic and also Urdu, because the sisters that I spoke to at that time were all predominantly Pakistani sisters. So we'd spoke about Arabic, Urdu. I went on then obviously to get books from the library, and then they started to hold small Islamic circles in the college as well that lasted probably about an hour, where we would go there and they would take us through proof of creator and proof of Quran, which again was extremely interesting. I then started to go on to larger conferences that were held in places like Birmingham, Manchester or London, and again I was just completely overwhelmed by the amount of people that were gathered there, particularly the sisters talks that I went to. There were just hundreds and hundreds of sisters that were all covered wearing hijab and niqab, and I just thought the whole thing was completely amazing. Such a sight to see, and such a confidence boost as well, to see that they were all on the same path and all striving for the same thing. So like I say, this went on for about seven or 8 years, and it wasn't until I came to have the discussion about marriage and getting married that I embraced Islam. And although I knew that I'd believed in Islam for quite a number of years before I actually took my Shahada, there was obviously something that was holding me back, and I never did it, although I did cut out certain things in my life. So for example, I stopped clubbing, drinking, no longer was eating pork, tried to eat halal food wherever possible, tried to dress more modestly. So when I was, as opposed to wearing tight fitted clothes, I would wear quite baggy jumpers that were polo neck jumpers, long skirts that came down to my ankle, or I would always wear baggy trousers with a top that would make sure that my backside was covered, or everything was covered, and try to dress as modestly as possible. So then when it actually came to arrange my wedding, and at the time I was getting married to a Muslim, we went to the mosque to speak to the imam and to set a date for the wedding. And again, at this point, I still hadn't really got any intention to straight away revert and embrace Islam at that time. I was just pretty much going along with my life how it was, and didn't really see an issue. When I went into the mosque this day to speak to the imam, as soon as I entered the mosque, I don't know what happened. It was just, I had to embrace Islam at that time. Something was telling me that I had to do it there and then. I could not leave this mosque without being a Muslim. And all the time that people were talking in the mosque about the wedding and setting the date, and all I could think about was, I need to become Muslim, I need to embrace Islam, I need to tell somebody, I need to do it now. So I told my friend who was sat next to me at the time, I need to take my Shahada now. And she was just really excited. She was like hugging me and, oh my God, I can't believe that you want to be a Muslim. She's and she started telling the imam she wants to embrace Islam, and everyone got really excited at that time. And I took my Shahada and never looked back, really. Came out of the mosque. The guy that I was getting married to at the time was completely shocked that I'd just gone into the mosque. I'd never mentioned anything about reverting or anything at all, and he was just completely shocked that